Good evening. It looks like we don't have quorum quite, so let's just wait a second. It looks like we're good to start. My name's Peter Wood. I'm the current chair of this committee, which is ANC 1C's Committee of Alcoholic Beverage Control and Public Safety. This is the March 2022 meeting. Thank you for everyone that is joining us tonight. We have a few agenda items. I'll just kind of break the ice. There's one particular issue that is most likely on lots of our minds. Probably good to kind of delay a little bit to address some of the other items related to police crime reports first, so we have some space to process that, which is the incident that happened at 18th in Florida Northwest last night. But unfortunately, not the only item of crime that's happened in the past month, I imagine. So we'll start with, if he's here yet, Captain Riley Hong for the monthly report. We also have Captain David Hong, who's here tonight to address hate crimes in the area, because that's also something that has been a recent issue and also a perpetual issue in DC and Asmore. So we'll begin with Captain Riley Hong. Thank you for being here.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me? So my name is Riley Hong. I'm the captain for the 3rd District, Sector 3, which covers PSA 303. And I'll go over in brief some of the key crimes we've had for the month of February, as well as overall trends. For the month of February, we had an increase in crime as compared to the previous year. Previous year, we had 23 total crimes. This year, we had 50. And out of the 50, 6 were violent crimes, which was an increase from last year, which had 2. As compared to the previous month of January, it's actually down 1. The rest were mainly increased by thefts, theft from autos. And for the violent crimes, we have 6 robberies that occurred. And then we also had for property crimes, 2 burglaries. I'll go real brief over those individual cases. 2300 20th Street on the February 20th, around 3:49 p.m. We had a victim walking home from a parked vehicle when 3 suspects exited a vehicle, displayed a gun, stole property, and fled in the suspect vehicle and the victim's vehicle. The vehicle was later recovered in the 2nd District. We had 1900 block of Biltmore Street Northwest on the 18th. Around 9:32 p.m., 2 suspects jumped out of a gray vehicle, displayed a handgun, stole property, and fled. 1700 block of Columbia Road. It was a domestic violence case where a phone was taken that's been closed with an arrest. We had 1600 block of Columbia Road on the 16th, around 2:08 a.m. Suspect approached the victim, asked for a cigarette. When the victim said no, the suspect grabbed the victim's backpack and fled on foot. 2300 block of Ontario Road on the 15th, around 1:25 p.m. We have 4 suspects approach and assault the victim, stole the victim's property, and fled. This one was a hate bias offense, and I believe Captain Hong may touch on this. And finally, we had 2800 block of Adams Mill Road on the 2nd, around 9:14 p.m. We had 3 suspects exit a vehicle, assault the victim, took the victim's property, and fled in the vehicle. For the 2 burglaries, both of them were in the 2400 block of 18th Street businesses. And the first one on the 12th, around 4:58 a.m., a suspect smashed the glass door with a rock, broke the cash register, and stole money. The video was obtained, and that was what narrowed down the time frame. We had another one on the 5th, around 6 p.m. was the last time the owner locked up. And then when they returned the next day at 5:45 a.m., they discovered the suspect had entered through the front door and stolen property. In that one, there was no forced entry and no alarm system. In light of the robberies that we have what we do is we currently continue to assess where the trends are occurring, where any patterns, similar suspect lookouts, and we're investigating those. When it involves vehicles, whether it's robberies involving taking of victims' vehicles or carjackings, we have detectives at the carjacking task force. They're handling a lot of these investigations because although crimes may be occurring here, they may be using the same vehicles, conducting the same kind of crimes in other districts throughout DC. And so what they're able to do is take a bigger focus and be able to take a look at all the crimes that may have similar lookouts, link them together. And sometimes they're able to close out multiple cases in many different areas. A lot of times it's a small group of repeat offenders who are conducting these kind of crimes. So the long-term improvement in our safety in our local neighborhood is going to be the investigation and apprehending these individuals. Hold on for a sec. Individuals, so that these crimes can be solved. And oftentimes it does lead to decrease in the continuance of these offenses. And then one other aspect that I'm looking into is working with businesses and admin smoking bid in the area. I'm looking into an opportunity. Perhaps we can coordinate an effort for getting an on-call contact for all the businesses that have security cameras that they might be able to access remotely, so that whenever we have these crimes occur, perhaps we'll be able to send out a time frame and a location and just email request to all those that have access to please review and share any video that may show evidence related to the crime, and provide a link to the lead detective. And if we can get that information faster, it'll help us with the apprehension and investigation aspect of it faster. One last thing I wanted to follow up on. I know people have been wondering about the traffic fatality we had up in 1800 block of Columbia Road. I was able to speak with an investigating official actually earlier today, and they advised that they do have some strong leads that they're following up on, and it appears they're working with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Right now, that's all I have, and hopefully when we hear back from further from the U.S. Attorney's Office, there might be more developments. If I don't hear back before the next meeting, then I'll follow up again and see.
Thank you. So I'll just lead off with a couple questions, and obviously the other commissioners can jump in as well. One thing that stuck out to me, you said that month-to-month comparisons between February 22 and this month, or excuse me, January and February, was more than doubling the amount of reported crimes in the area. How does that number, you said 50, how does that compare to kind of like a multi-year trend? Is that, and also just like yearly averages, is that something that we're seeing as an outlier over the past 3 to 5 years, or is this something that fits into a different type of trend?
Oh, I see what you mean. So I think maybe I didn't clarify. The 23 increase to 50 was a year to year. So February 2021 was 23. February 2020.
I misspoke. Sorry about that. Yeah. So compared to past years, how does that measure up?
So initially, when we had the COVID epidemic first begin and we had the very extreme lockdowns, we saw a significant decrease in overall crime. People weren't going out. businesses weren't open. So a lot of those common trends were significantly lower. And as we are seeing that businesses are opening back up, people are back out, the opportunity for the crime is growing again. And so it's going back up. Some of it is to be expected. Typically, we do see an increase in crimes as the weather warms up towards the summer seasons. But it's something that we're just going to have to keep on monitoring and addressing.
Okay. And just a couple other points. So, I mean, we'll probably get into this in a second as well, but a lot of carjackings have been happening, not just in Adams Morgan or DC, but most American cities. A lot of them are armed carjackings. A difficult question and might not have the available data set, but just the guns, have many been apprehended? If so, has there been any tracing of where those guns are coming from?
So I don't have hard data to provide, but yeah, there have been a lot more, just from my personal experience from years past. I think the past 2 years or so, we've seen more evidence or incidents of carjackings than in previous years. Typically, we'd see robberies more or stolen autos, but now it's the combination of the two. That's why we're trying to address it, investigate it further. A lot of firearms that we are seeing, because MPD, we are recovering a lot of firearms in a lot of areas. It's more than we've ever done before. A lot of these are typically, I think in the past, they've been described as ghost guns, but it's basically the guns that are manufactured or bought as kits. So it ranges in the types, but we are seeing a lot more of those types of homemade guns being recovered as well.
I apologize. I think that you might have answered this, but I missed which point it was. So the two issues that we've had recurring, Nina Larson's death last fall, and then also the D-Light crime. Have there been any, again, I apologize if you said this right, but any updates on those two situations?
Oh yeah, so Nina's fatal accident, that's the one that I had followed up with major crash detectives earlier today, and they said that there are significant leads. They're working hand in hand with the U.S. Attorney's Office. At this point, the status is we're kind of waiting for feedback from the U.S. Attorney's Office.
And the second one, yeah, sorry, I heard you say the second part of that, just not the first. And then I believe that it's mostly resolved, but please correct me if I'm wrong. There's arson or suspected arson on 18th Street at a bakery. I believe that the suspect was apprehended. Is that correct?
Yes. So we were able to get some good video footage from the business. And once that video footage was made available to our officers, several of our officers immediately identified the individual as someone they've had contact with in the past. Arson is usually investigated by the arson investigator on the fire department. So we were able to pass that information on. And then later on, the individual was located and apprehended.
Got it. Thank you. So Commissioner Pawlik, you had your hand up and raised. Do you still have a question?
Actually, you pretty much addressed it when you asked the follow-up about the U.S. Attorney's involvement. But since we're on that topic, and I came to the commission after the event took place, could the captain clarify, was this a hit and run, or did you apprehend a potential perpetrator at the scene? And if the latter is true, why are we now bringing in the U.S. Attorney?
Oh, yeah. So for the traffic accident fatality, 1800 block of Columbia, the victim and the striking vehicle were both on scene when officers arrived. There was no attempt to flee. So we had all the individuals, all the evidence. Major Crash will respond and investigate, lock down the scene. They do a very in-depth crime scene collection, forensics, towing of vehicles, everything. So I'm not an expert on the major crash investigation side of it, but what they do is they assess everything, interview everyone, and then based on what their investigation finds, they may apply for a warrant. Because all parties are known, no one tries to flee, there's no sign of flight risk. So they will go through, coordinate with the U.S. Attorney's Office, prepare a warrant for apprehension or charging criminal charges, and they'll work with the office in that way.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Fauschini, please go ahead.
Hey, Captain Hong, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. Thanks for being here. So 50 crimes and 6 violent crimes definitely feels like a lot. A significant uptick. And, I think last month we saw a bit of an uptick year on year as well, but it didn't feel quite as significant as this. When we're talking about 50 and 6 violent, how does that compare to 2020, just before we went into COVID and we saw the decrease in 2021? Because I know, throughout 2021, we were definitely seeing a decrease. Are we seeing a spike above pre-pandemic levels now, or are we seeing kind of an evening out with pre-pandemic? It certainly feels a little scary right now in the neighborhood. So I guess I'm just trying to contextualize all this.
Oh, sure, that's understandable. I don't have the numbers, but those are numbers I can get. So soon after our meeting is over, I can look into that and forward you the comparison to 2020, and then let you know.
Thank you. And with the carjackings, to what extent is the carjacking task force, starting to find resolution on this, digging into making arrests or working their way up a arrest ladder? Can we do some sort of report on that at some point in the near future? Because it really does, we've had kind of a few months now where several of the violent crimes in the neighborhood have been carjackings, and I feel very comfortable with the reports that we get from you. And I certainly feel that you're able to provide a lot of light, but when that happens, it feels like it's going into a black box that I have no visibility into whatsoever. So maybe it would be good if we were to bring them here next month just to give us a report out or something.
Yeah, I'll see if that could be done. At the very least, I can reach out to them and see if they can provide any sort of closure numbers. I do know that even some vehicles that have been involved in our robberies or carjackings, some have been apprehended in other districts by other officers in the 6th district or the 5th district. And in some of those, evidence has been recovered, and some weapons have been recovered. So I don't have the specific numbers, but I'll see if I can coordinate with them, either have them or get the information that I could provide.
That would be great. Thank you so much. And I defer to the chair on kind of some of the questions that we're getting in the chat box, but I assume that you're waiting until after all the commissioners get a chance.
I was just going to say, I'm acknowledging that they're there, but I'll let Commissioner Clem go first. Thanks. All yours, Commissioner.
Oh, okay. So thanks, Captain Hong. I had a question about police presence in the neighborhood. We're discussing a lot of the crimes that are obviously outside of the direct business district of Adams Morgan, but before the Latin liaison unit closed, there was always a police presence on 18th Street, even if it was just just for sight efforts. I mean, just to like optics. I mean, I'm just wondering, do we not have people patrolling the side streets? Are there not MPD constantly looking at the neighborhood? I just it just does seem like an uptick in crime, and a lot of crime on the side streets and in the neighborhood, not just in the business district, but also I can tell you, I mean, I can't, I walk around my neighborhood all the time, and I don't expect to see a police person on Ontario Road necessarily, but I certainly don't. Like, I never see police people, and the only place I see them is in the business district of Adams Morgan. So is that part of the solution, possibly? Just more presence in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I understand the concern about that. We used to have a much larger nightlife unit and a lot larger presence on 18th Street. Over the years, ever since we've had a lot of the, I guess, protest movements. I think within the past 2 years, we've had a lot of officers leave. But whoever we have, we are doing what we can. And right now, we're trying to show the presence. We're trying to show the business corridors where we've had typical issues. On Columbia Road, more than 18th Street, we've had a lot of crime occur on Columbia Road. So we've been trying to focus more in that area. However, with the robbery trends, we have been shifting so that we can focus on where the crime is occurring. And a lot of these crimes are occurring in 303 all over. It's been on Biltmore. It's been on 20th Street. It's a lot of side roads and neighborhoods. So although we do have units specifically focusing on robbery prevention in these areas, a lot of times it may not be as visible as when you see an officer on 18th or 20th, where it's a wide, clear road. So that's one thing. We are trying to hit the small neighborhood areas and side streets where the robberies are occurring, but that may not be as visible.
Thank you.
Thanks. So a few others that were in the chat, and then to the one I mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, I've personally varied understanding of each one, so please bear with me. But I know there was one report today, probably like 500 feet from my house. I just wasn't at home, of a robbery around 4 p.m. Around, I think it was 19th and Colorado, 20th and Colorado, something like that. Is there any information about that situation that you can share?
I don't have it right now because the information I have is from February, but I can look into it and reach out to you after the meeting.
Okay, and yeah, we always have next month as well, but just obviously very unfortunate timing. Another was more from the past month, February 18th, Biltmore 19th. I think I remember hearing about this as well, but I don't remember particular details. Can you share those with us?
Oh, yeah. So for that one, 2 suspects jumped out of a gray vehicle, displayed a handgun, stole property, and fled. The property was a phone wallet. I believe that was one where we were able to get some video footage, share it with the officers. We were looking for the vehicle.
Thank you. And then, I mean, again, it's another pretty recent thing, but last night we led, mentioning that there was a fatality at 18th in Florida. I've heard mixed different reports of what's happening. Things have obviously evolved since last night. What can you share about what happened?
Yeah, so for that one, I can share that right now it's being investigated by our homicide detectives as a homicide. This wasn't simply a hit and run. I can't go into details because right now we're at the stage where we want to receive more information from the public, from any potential witnesses who may have seen what happened without my account adulterating their version. So right now, that's what I can share. I can share that the vehicle actually, I've learned today that we have recovered the vehicle. And so the investigators are proceeding with all leads. But if there's any witnesses or people that were present when it occurred, have seen or heard anything, they're welcome to call 202-727-9099 or text 50411 with any text tips, and that will be reviewed and forwarded to the lead investigator.
Thank you. The car was recovered, I think, a few miles north from just off 16th Street, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I can't say the specific location, but yeah, it's going to be north of where we are.
And then you probably can't answer this, even if you had an answer, but is there any suspicion that this was a premeditated event or spontaneous, or is that something they can't go into?
I can't say. The investigators will have to look more into it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Falskini.
Sorry, yeah, this just came from one of your responses, Captain Hong, to Commissioner Clem's question about your police force dropping off over the course of the last 2 years. Can you just give us a sense of the numbers of where your local officers were in 2020 and where they are now?
That I don't have, and typically for the ANC meetings, we don't go into manpower. What I can say is I know all the officers that we have are out there. They're working, they're putting in extra hours. They're going from call to call. And so one of the things is when officers are not given an assignment from the dispatcher, they have areas of special attention and focus so that we can prevent more issues that we are observing in that area. However, the dispatchers, they get the calls for service, they prioritize, and they send whoever is the nearest available unit so that we can prevent further issues. So it's just everyone's working, and we're out there trying our best.
Thanks.
Thank you so
Commissioner
much.
Malapi, go ahead.
Thanks. Captain, I have a question that occurred to me today in regard to the event last night in the intersection at 18th and Florida and U. It's general enough. I hope you can answer it. And my question is, does the city or anybody else have closed circuit TV cameras operating at that intersection? I ask because I looked online, couldn't find any evidence there was, but on one of the poles in the little cement triangle right in the middle of that configuration, there's something on top that looks like a camera, but there's also a wire hanging down like it's not plugged in. So I just wondered if you guys know anything about that. Thanks.
Oh yeah, I don't know offhand, but I can look into it. A lot of times, there are a lot of non-MPD cameras, and if they belong to DDOT or some other agency, the investigators will find out who operates it and try to obtain footage. I do know that we have some good footage provided by witnesses, so investigators are using that.
It strikes me that that's an intersection that you might want to think about putting an MPD camera in eventually, because there's a lot of activity and a lot of confusion on many levels. So thanks very much.
Sure.
Another question that came through in the chat, and thank you to everyone who's sending these, by the way. Do you have any information on the assault and attempted mugging that occurred on the 2400 block of 20th Street on March 6th?
March 6th, I don't have off, but I can look into that and get back to you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll definitely have more questions in March, but if there's no other input from commissioners of the community, we'll move on. Thank you so much for being here. Of course, any crime is one crime too many, but we can at least assess what happened and figure out what's next. So this is helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next on our agenda is Captain David Hong to discuss, as we kind of mentioned, hate crimes. One was recorded last month. Thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Hey, Peter, how you guys doing? Thank you so much for having me. So, I like taking time to, speak to ANC or any of the community about hate crimes. I know it's a big issue that's been going on nationwide, right? And so just to give you guys a little background about my unit, I run the Special Liaison Branch. And so within my branch, I have the Asian, LGBT, Latino, deaf and hard of hearing, interfaith, and African liaison units. We pride ourselves on being the model of community policing, but on top of serving all the communities in the district, that's a lot of our focus, working with the historically underserved, okay? Obviously, we have a big focal point with hate crimes, as the communities that we deal with are prone to be the victims of the hate crimes. And so, you know, a lot of our work is centered towards that. I understand that there's some issues in 3D, the one at the Roofers Union. I'm sure you guys heard about that or aware of that. You know, we're looking into that as well. My officer actually has a meeting with them tomorrow to get a little more clarification. But the one big thing I want to mention to the community and you guys is the importance of reporting these hate crimes, okay? So a lot of people don't know there's a difference between a hate crime and a hate bias incident. And what a hate bias incident is say that you're walking down the street and you hear a racial slur. It might not necessarily be criminal, but we want to know about it. And so we encourage people to call 911. We encourage people to call the 3rd District in this case to flag it, right? And so the reason that's so important is because we want to get in front of it before it becomes a crime. You know what I mean? And so, you know, just in the broad scope of things going on, you know, I work heavily with the Jewish organizations, the Asian communities, the Latino communities. We're out in Mount Pleasant as much as we can. The one thing about the unit I want you guys to know is that we're citywide. And so we go around the whole city and, you know, address the various communities throughout the district. I can go on and on, but I'll kind of stop there just to kind of answer some questions for you guys, if you guys have any.
Yeah, thanks so much. So Commissioner Fanelski, Dan, no, yeah, go ahead. I have some as well, but you please lead it.
Captain Hong, thank you so much. Really appreciate having you here and really appreciate your work. It's just so important. So thank you very, very much. As you know, there was an incident last month where, you know, there was an assault and robbery that took place on Ontario Road. And just before that robbery took place, there was a really hateful anti-LGBT slur that they yelled at the victim before they attacked him. It was like, you know, it's very upsetting when this sort of stuff happens in our neighborhood. Adams Morgan is a place where I think we really pride ourselves on our diversity and acceptance. And so when stuff like this happens, it's very upsetting for everyone in the neighborhood. So can you just tell me a little bit more about what's happening there to make sure that we reach resolution and really get into this? And also, what do we do as a community to, you know, to A, to get ahead of stuff like this, and then B, to rally behind our communities to let them know that we support them after some, you know, an incident like this takes place?
That's those are great questions. And so as far as that assault that it took place with the hateful speech, every crime that includes a community member, especially with the LGBT community member, my LGBT liaison unit does a follow-up or response to the scene. So we've been working with that victim. We offer resources and make sure that, you know, they're squared away on anything they need and any support that we can give them. To answer your question about what you can do, it's so cliche for me to say, but I say this all the time in presentations, is if you see something, say something. The problem I see a lot of time is you're walking by and you hear it, but you don't say anything. And so it's hard for us to kind of get a grasp of it, right, in certain areas. And so an example I'll give you is like when we deal with the Asian community, okay? They don't really like to call the police, right? And so unfortunately, we rely on the citizens. And so, or anyone that's just walking by to call us to let us know what's going on. And so, you know, that's a big thing I preach is if you see something, say something. That's very, very important. Also, you know, as I was listening to Captain Hong speaking, you know, it seems like it's a great support network in 3D. And, you know, to kind of inform the police that we have a special liaison branch in the Washington, D.C. I want to let you guys know that this is very unique, what we're doing in the District of Columbia. I can't tell you any department nationwide that has a unit like this. And that's something that, you know, I would be honored for you to mention to the community. Hey, we got resources as a special liaison branch. They have officers that mirror the community. They have officers that understand the culture. They have officers that can speak the language. You know, we take great pride in that. And so, you know, giving information to the community like that, you know, helps us a lot and just helps the community as a whole that in the end of the day, we're here to help.
Thank you so much. So yeah, this is a topic, I mean, it affects everyone. It's particularly important to me. I have some research experience sort of working with this, but in the Latin American context, yeah, the distinguishing between the two types, the hate crime and the hate bias incident is very important. One question, this is a big question, so you answer however you feel is most appropriate, but what
Sure.
measures have you seen besides, I guess, big picture type responses that have been effective in essentially preventing or at least mitigating hate crimes and related incidents from occurring in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's hard to stop someone that's going to preach hate, right? And so the biggest thing is just the awareness about their options that the police department can provide the support. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I can solve every hate crime, but the one thing I always tell people too is I welcome the news. I don't want to say that hate crimes go up, right? But in a weird sense, if the numbers go up, that means they're reporting it to us. That means that we're knowing about the situation, right? And so that's how I kind of look at it. We do a lot of outreach. I mean, a ton of outreach with a lot of communities, just about explaining them how to report a crime and, what resources they have. Like, when you're dealing with the Latino community, a lot of them they fear immigration. And the one thing that we tell them right away is, hey, we don't care about that. We don't enforce any type of immigration. You can call us for this. I have Spanish speaking officers, whatever the case may be. Right. And so, that's the way I kind of look at it.
That's very helpful. And it brings up a related question that it's hard to answer just because the data don't exist for people who don't want to be acknowledged. But are there any communities that you find are particularly difficult or they're particularly hesitant to come forward, even when they're the victims of a hate crime, that we should continue to approach with care?
Absolutely. So like I just mentioned, I would say the Latino community with that, what I just said about the immigration and the language barrier, but also the Asian community. I'll give you a quick personal story. I grew up in upstate New York, Rochester. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar. It's freezing up there, but for some reason, my parents decided to move there. But my parents to this day, they own a small business. It's a beauty supply store. And I remember I grew up in that, right? I saw the hate crimes. I saw the craziness. I saw us getting robbed. I mean, you name it, right? But the thing is, my dad never wanted to call, ever. And I'm like, one day when I was older, I said, Dad, why aren't we calling the police here? We got to do something, right? And the biggest thing that the big three things that I always take away from that is, one, he just didn't understand. And what I mean by that is they don't know the process. Us on here, we take it for granted. When you call the police, they're going to come. They're going to take a report. And you kind of know the idea, right? But as an immigrant or a Latino or Asian community member, they don't know that. And so the unknown really freaks them out, right? Secondly is the language barrier. And so they don't think that police officers look like me, look like Captain Hong. And they don't know that they have officers available like that. You know what I mean? And the one other thing is that he said they just don't care. Obviously, that is not true. And, I know, when I tell that story, unfortunately, a lot of the business share that same sentiment, the ones that I go out to or the community members that I deal with. And now I'm trying to break that mold and that way of thinking, with our unit, with our outreach, with our responsiveness, on a daily basis. And so that's the important key goal, is to constantly keep reporting. One other thing I'll say is the transgender community as well, and so when we deal a lot with the LGBT community, they've been through so much, right? And they've had their reasons not to trust the police. And that's why it's ever so important for my LGBT liaison unit to do the work that they do, stay in contact with the nonprofit organizations and, the various mayor's offices. I saw that Japer was an attendee, so I don't know if he's still on, but, working with him and his team, that's very important to know that we're working with a bunch of people to combat this.
So just while we're on that, before we get to Commissioner Falaskini, Japer is Japer Bowles. He's the director of LGBTQ affairs for the mayor's office. Are there other agencies or even community organizations? Because you mentioned, at least in my life, and I think some others on this commission, the Latino population is something that's a big part of my life. Language differences, fear of, I've been personally involved with the immigration process in several cases on both sides, as an immigrant and as a partner of an immigrant. Very sensitive subject. Approaching the police is often something that is rare or not going to happen Are there other organizations or agencies that you have partnerships or just an understanding of that are good for us to refer people to?
Of course. And so, I mean, that's one of the great things about my job is I work with so many people. And then one of the main key members I work with is the Mayor's Office of Latino Affairs. We also work with Carlos Rosario a lot. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Carlos Rosario. That's on Harvard Street. We work with them heavily. And so we get to know the community as a whole because we do a lot of presentations there. We do a lot of events there. We work with the community. And so, I mean, we work with AUDA. I mean, there's so many that I can just rattle off the top of my head just with the Latino community, but that goes, farther with each demographic in a sense, right? With the Jewish community, I'm very, very, work very closely with ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. I have very close contacts. I talk to them every day, essentially. I talk with the Secure Community Network. I don't know if you're familiar with them. I mean, I can go on and on and on and drop the names, but the greatest partners, I would say, are the mayor's offices, the various ones throughout the city. Mayor's Office of Asian Affairs, Mayor's Office of Religious Affairs. I mean, Mayor's Office of LGBT Affairs. And so, and I get what you're saying, Peter. That's a very true statement. Sometimes there's places that the police can't get in, and there's sometimes information that we can't pass because they don't want to talk to us. And so we do rely a lot on these nonprofits, the various government agencies, and believe me, we work very, very well together.
Thank you. Like I said, it's something that I actually had a federally funded postdoctoral position studying how in Brazil the police often don't have access to communities. So it's something that I think is important to think about. So I appreciate that.
For sure.
Commissioner Falskini, please go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to, are there special services and or resources that become available for investigations if they are labeled as a hate crime? So if a crime occurs and there's an understanding that it was a hate crime, does that draw in special services and or investigative units in order to help solve those more quickly?
Yes, absolutely. So like I said, obviously with the investigation portion, the special liaison branch is going to be a big focal point of the investigation. So the resources are there right away. So say it's a Korean victim, we're always going to have a Korean officer assisting that victim along the way. Also, another partner I deal with heavily, we meet on a bi-weekly basis, is the U.S. Attorney's Office that investigates all the hate crimes. And so we are on the same page. And so anything that happens within the city, I'm typically the first one to know about these hate crimes. And so we are always sharing the information. Also, if it becomes the federal level, which is rare in the district, but if it does, I also work very heavily with the Human Rights Division at the FBI. And so, I'm telling you guys, like once this stuff kind of hits, it's seamless, and we work so well together. We've developed a great system with all the partners, and we just share information, and I share information with the community. Another example would be like, did you guys hear about the swastika at Union Station? So yeah, I'm sure everybody did, right? And so, right away, the Metropolitan Police Department, especially the Special Liaison Branch, we take pride in like taking the initiative. So I will send a message out to everybody right away. Hey, we're investigating this. I want you to know you guys aren't in danger, that type of thing, where we're making sure that the community feels safe and they're not vulnerable at that time, that the police are on top of it. And so, again, I'll say is the relationships I've built with all these agencies and all these nonprofits, I mean, it's a constant communication.
Thank you so much. It looks like we have Commissioner Clem with a question. Please go ahead.
Thanks, Captain Hong. I wanted to thank you for your work, and the information tonight has been very helpful. Unfortunately, it's needed. So thank you for your work. I'm curious about somebody who has a language barrier calling 911. Is 911 trained on how to communicate with somebody in distress who has a language barrier?
So that's a great question. And so the department does have that. Our 911 center, and even if you call our command information center, there's a prompt. So it will say, if you're requesting it to be directed to our language services program, it'll be immediate. And so it'll be transferred over. Obviously, with the 911, it might be a little bit delayed, unfortunately. And that's something that we're trying to work out. But if you need language services, that can be provided to you right away.
Thank you so much. I'll wait a second if anyone from the community has any further questions. I haven't seen any hands go up, but all right, we'll call it there. Thank you so much again for your time. I think that Commissioner Clem said it well. Unfortunate that we need your services, but you're definitely a valuable resource. So thank you for sharing that knowledge with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And Peter, just, you got my email now, you got my information. If you have any questions or if I can help 3D in any way, just, please feel free to reach out. Okay.
That's great. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
So now we'll move and change tones a little bit to our final agenda item, which is considering an application for Lamont Royal. I believe we have Matt Menora representing them. If you could be elevated to panelist, please. If there's someone else I'm missing, please mention them as well.
Hello, commissioners.
Welcome. Please go ahead. Glad to have you.
And I just wanted to note, I also have been joined by Charles Jefferson, one of the owners. If you want to promote him as well, just so he can speak when it comes up to us.
Looks like it's ready. Go ahead.
Perfect. So this is an application for retailer's Class C restaurant ABC license on behalf of Lamont Royal at 1815 Adams Mill Road Northwest. It's the former Southern Hospitality location. We actually base a lot of the hours that we're applying for on what was already existing there. They end all at the exact same times. For example, the inside hours we're looking for operations are 7 a.m. to 2 a.m. during the week and 7 a.m. to 3 a.m. on the weekends. For alcoholic beverage sales, it's 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. During the week and 9 a.m. to 3 a.m. during the weekend. There's a summer garden endorsement for 40 seats, just like Southern Hospitality had. The hours of operation on the outside are 10 a.m. to midnight Sunday, 9 a.m. to midnight Monday through Thursday, and 9 a.m. to 2 a.m. on Friday, and 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. on Saturday. We're also requesting an entertainment endorsement for the interior only from 11 a.m. to 1 a.m. during the week and 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. The concept of the restaurant is going to be a French-Canadian style bistro. And I'll let Charles talk a bit more about the actual concept of the menu. But if there's any questions about the particulars of the ABC license application, I can address those now. Or if we want to get right to Charles's part, it's much more interesting than mine. We can do that as well.
I think go ahead with Charles and then we can kind of lump questions together.
Sounds good.
Hey guys,
Welcome,
I
Charles.
recognize a couple of the faces. This is my first time at this ANC meeting, but I've been a manager in Adams Morgan for the last 3 years or so. I think I definitely have served Fiona, but anyway, so this is an iteration of a concept that I've been working on for the better part of 7 years. Kind of a French bistro wine bar, but skewed in a different direction than most people would take it. With late night poutine, natural wine, good craft cocktails, kind of trying to serve as an intermediary between what happens on 18th Street and the bars and restaurants like Tail Up Goat and the Lion Hotel. Yeah, and I'm trying to keep it brief, but yeah, any questions?
That's helpful. I'll lead off. Relatively close to residential zoning. What types of, noise mitigation is always an issue. Can you take us through how you plan on addressing that?
Yeah, we would be eliminating outdoor noise after midnight and closing the patio. And encompassing on all sides are businesses, so we shouldn't have too much noise spilling out from through the walls. And in terms of, I can promise you based off of what sort of bar and restaurant I'm going for that will be quieter than the rest of 18th Street across the street.
A very welcome thing to say here.
Yeah.
And so a second point, I imagine this would get addressed in the settlement agreement process regardless, but trash, grease, things like that, what's your process just for making sure that things that need to be disposed of are done so in a responsible manner?
Yeah, luckily that back, not alleyway, but kind of alleyway, it's a gated little alleyway. has plenty of space for trash storage and grease storage until it can be picked up every week. I'm in negotiations with, luckily, I worked at Roofers Union. I've got all of the local contacts for grease removal and trash pickup. But
Yeah,
you know,
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Looks like Commissioner Clement has a question. Please go ahead.
Yes.
Hi, thanks. Yes, I'm looking forward to this. Thanks for the explanation of what you plan on doing. I'm curious, just knowing the space, I'm curious, do you have a C of O for upstairs also?
Yes, first and second floor, not the third floor.
Right.
The third floor is now an office, but the first and second floor will have occupancy in those spaces.
Okay, great. And okay, that was just curious about that. Thanks.
Thank you. I believe there was one question that we had kind of discussed, I forget where it was, through an email or something internally, that was regarding, I think, prior property ownership and maybe past taxes, if I'm mistaken, someone please correct me. But is that, I might be confusing things, sorry. I'm getting confused looks, so I'll just stop right there. But beyond that, any other challenges that just things that our perspective can be helpful to share some input on? This is very helpful, brief, but definitely helpful.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out about like, what are the limitations on signage? If anyone could give me any inputs on that, that would be amazing. But
are you concerned with like lit signage or
lit signage? Yeah, just replacing the existing Soho sign with something that isn't branded for someone else's bar.
Like a good business strategy, but that's not our place to comment. Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head anything. I can look things up. Anyone else have information that can share on that point?
I don't. That's not normally a part of any of our settlement agreements. So
Yeah.
Cool.
we could also check with the bid and see if they have any idea.
I feel like I've come across something before. I'll dig it up to see if it's helpful, but nothing right now. Sorry.
I was gonna say, all I know at the top of my head is when there are rules, they're complicated. So it's good to check with someone who's gone through it before.
Okay.
Absolutely. Do we have any questions from anyone in the general public that's here tonight for our presenters? It looks like we do not. Thank you so much for presenting. I'm glad that we got it so that the timeline worked out so that we can, oh, looks like we do. Go ahead, Commissioner Falskini.
Sorry, I just wanted to say I'm the commissioner for the SMD where y'all will be. So Peter has asked me to work on a community settlement agreement with y'all, because normally we try to do that per the SMD commissioner. So I'm open and happy to work on a settlement agreement. We've got other similar restaurants around the area where we've got settlement agreements. We try to create some consistency in that, so folks don't feel like they're being treated differently than anyone else. And the big stuff for us is really noise, trash, and making sure that y'all are good neighbors. And it seems like the concept is great and fits in, and you've been in the neighborhood for a long time, so we're excited to be able to hammer something out and get a settlement agreement in front of our full commission for April 6th. Is that correct? That Wednesday? That's when
that's correct.
Ideally, yeah, the 6th. Ideally, we'd like to have something in place by like that Monday, so that all the rest of the commissioners have some time to look it over, or the Sunday beforehand, so that everybody has time. So we'll send you over a draft. Let's start talking and hammer something out over the next couple of weeks, so the community has something to look at before our vote on the 6th.
Yeah, looking forward to working with you. We've actually been already looking at some of the settlement agreements around there, so we have an idea of what's expected. We've been in this area for a while, so we're looking forward to working with you all, and we'll keep an eye out for that draft.
That's great. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, commissioners.
Yeah, that keeps everything simple. Thanks so much for coming.
Appreciate it.